So once again, my name's Alexandra Vandekamp. I'm the executive director of Gemini Inc. We are San Antonio's Writing Arts Center. If you don't know who we are, we've actually been in existence for 27 years, which is no small feat for a writing arts center. We love creating events where people meet new authors and we bring readers to writers, and you just get fed by the storytelling that is happening by authors you may not know of or you love and want to see. So this is very much a emphasis of the Big Texas Read, to feature the diverse, very talented voices in our state. And so tonight I'm just so psyched to have Rebekah Manley with us from Austin, and Amy Gentry, our featured equally talented, extremely talented writer, as our guest moderator. I wanted to thank some of our sponsors for the Big Texas Read. We are partnering with Interabang Books in Dallas and also with the Twig Bookstore here in San Antonio, where you can buy Rebekah's book. Also, UTSA Libraries has been a wonderful support through giving Gemini Inc. interns, and interns are really invaluable. And so we just want you to enjoy tonight's conversation. Rebekah is going to read and actually show her picture book. Treat us to that. And then we'll have a nice Q&A conversation with Amy and Rebekah. And then we will open it up to audience questions for like the last 15 minutes. Please use the chat, say hello to everyone, post questions. I'll be looking through them later that we can ask Rebekah. And we always like to kick off the Big Texas Read with people, if you feel like it, telling us where you're zooming in from. So feel free to put that in the chat. And I'm going to turn it over to David, who's really the founder of the Big Texas Read. This is his brainchild. Blake Kimsey can't be with us tonight, but Writing Workshops Dallas is a key part of this. So David, you want to take it from here?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Alexandra. I haven't figured out the pin thing, so I'm gonna figure it out before we look at my hair. Alexandra, you're amazing. Gemini Inc. and Writing Workshops Dallas. Blake is not here, but these are the two people who have been promoting this thing. They do a lot more work than I do. I'm just glad that I had the idea and that I reached out to these two amazing people. And I appreciate you so much, Alexandra. You're so great. And tonight, okay, so I'm going to introduce Amy, who is the moderator first, and then I'll introduce Rebekah, who is the star. And I will try and pin both of these lovely ladies, but maybe, I don't know, I'll figure it out. Okay, Amy Gentry. I met Amy 3.5 years ago. She was pregnant with her, is it second child, Amy? First yeah. Child, only child, who's adorable, who came in to say goodnight before we started. Amy and I sat on a panel, and she's incredible. She's an amazing speaker. She's an incredible novelist. You guys should buy her books if you have not bought her books. I think she has like 8,000 of them, but I think maybe 3. Is that right, Amy, or do you have 2? 3? Okay, so Amy has 3 books. They're all thrillers. They're feminist thrillers. I'm going to ask Amy about that much later, but let me introduce her. Amy Gentry is the author of the feminist thrillers Good Is Gone, Last Woman Standing, and Bad Habits, as well as Boys for Pele, a book of music criticism in the 33 1/3 series. Is that, can I just stop? Is that Tori Amos?
Yeah.
I mean, she's, did you meet her? Did you talk to her?
I have not. I was
Okay.
scared, but we'll talk about that another day.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. I love Boys for Pele. So her book reviews and essays have appeared in numerous outlets, including the Chicago Tribune, Salon, the Paris Review, the Los Angeles Review of Books, and the Austin Chronicle. Her interests include cake and decorating and horror films, and her favorite movie is The Women, the original Women, 1939, which is an incredible film with, what's her name? Joan Crawford, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're reading the extended version of my bio. I love this.
I love the extended version of your bio. She holds a PhD in English from the University of Chicago, where she wrote her dissertation on miniatures and modernism, and she lives in Austin, Texas. She's amazing. Now for Rebekah. I wish we had a drum roll, whatever. Okay, Rebekah Manley holds her Master of Fine Arts in Children's Literature from Hollins University, which, if you don't know, is one of the most beautiful universities on the motherfucking planet. She's earned her MFA and feels like she's earned her MFA in dating. She lives in Austin, Texas, another Austinite, and is fueled by swimming, queso, and good conversation. Rebekah runs the Texas Center for the Book, which is an amazing organization. Please, everyone, drop your hats and go there immediately after the big Texas read. And works to encourage literacy, reading, and library use in the Lone Star State. This is a very important organization, really, seriously. You can read more at RebekahManley.com and on her blog, brave22.com. Okay. Please connect on Twitter at Rebekah A. Manley, and Instagram at Rebekah A. Manley, and at your brave22. I love it. All right, ladies, I'm going to try and pin you. If I fuck up, I fuck up. So take it away.
Awesome.
Okay, well, hi everyone. I hope I'm showing up in the right place. Hi, Rebekah, most of all. It's so exciting to be here with you today. Becca and I have known each other for several years. We both live in Austin, and we started bumping into each other at book-related events about 6 or 7 years ago. And she'll tell you a little bit more about that. But I am just so beyond pleased to see this book come out into the world, because I got to see some of it like a little bit earlier when she was still in her querying phase. And it just totally enchanted me at that time. And it's only gotten more amazing since. So I think the plan is, I think for Rebekah, if you want to just give us just a few words about the book, and then maybe just launch right into the reading. What do you think?
That sounds perfect. I'm so happy to be here with you, Amy. I'm so glad that they chose you. And I will talk more about that too, but Amy and I have a fun friendship author story. Yeah, so this book, I always say it's a book about 30 bad dates in 30 days. So that's the thread, but really it's all about friendship and empowerment. And I'm so excited to share it with you. And I could talk about it, but why? I might as well read it. So let's see. I don't know. I'll just do that. Okay, great. Share my screen. Ta-da. Can you see that?
Yes.
Are you able to see?
Well,
Yeah,
now
okay,
it's gone. The picture is gone now. But the book is not there yet for me.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, try again. It worked the first time you did it, so I'm confident.
Practice this. Yeah, we did practice this.
You did.
I'm not sure what happened. Please enjoy the music while your party is reached.
La, la. I will tell while you're getting this organized, I will just talk a little bit more about that Becca and I actually kind of re-met again in a class I was teaching on querying at the Writing Barn. And at the time that's why I got to see her query. She was querying several children's books and that's something I'm going to ask you about in a minute after the book is read.
Yeah.
Take it away, Becca.
Yeah, and I'm hoping you can see this right now.
Yes.
But
Yes.
And the cliffhanger was, I decided that I was like, you know what, Amy, I've got a lot of ideas, but I'm really passionate about this picture book on dating. Could you read this query? And she read it. And you know, when you're like searching someone's eyes, like, please don't hate it. Please don't hate it. But also it's okay if you hate it, because we're just querying. We're all, and I could just see the sparkle in her eye. And she's like, yeah, you've got it here. And I was like, oh, really? You think I do? And so she's encouraged me along this whole journey. So that's why it's really special. We're here together. Okay. So Alexandra and the Awful, Awkward, No Fun, Truly Bad Dates by me, and illustrated by the incredibly talented Katerina Oliveira. Single and turning 30, Alex challenged herself to hashtag 30 dates in 30 days. Coffee shops, happy hours, tapas galore, and endless who's getting the check tangos. How bad could it be? And what did she have to lose? Her date insisted she get the prime rib and that women should just accept the wage gap. Your brains are just different, he mansplained. Oh, I missed the first part. It says number 1 was clearly a hashtag mistake. Your brains are just different, he mansplained. Alex grabbed her steak to go and let him enjoy the financial success of buying her meal. Date number 2 briefed everyone at the wine and cheese bar on his Ivy League status. Hashtag Harvard Avardi tossed his menu at the server. I can't believe you don't have a proper dessert line. Alex deserted him. Guess who treated, you guys could also try to guess which ones of these were based on real life if you want, just kind of fun little thing. Because this one was. Guess who treated mom to a cruise every year? Number 3. They even lived next door to each other in matching apartments. Before Alex took her first bite, number 3 posted a photo and tagged his mom. Look, mac and cheese with lobster, your favorite. Hashtag mom is your lobster. His mom double tapped, Alex tapped out. She received awful reception for number 4. They met online and that's where he stayed. He had his phone out their entire date. Hashtag phone it in, hashtag loss of appetite. Numbers 5 through 7 were like cereal without a prize. Perfectly fine, but not worth a round 2. Hashtag checks, please. It felt like work to hear some dates only talk about their jobs. Alex appreciated number 8's preparation until he demanded silence to perfect his copper theory. Hashtag see you never. No chemistry. Number 9 spent the whole date teaching his favorite programming languages. He permitted questions but did not reciprocate. Hashtag does not compute. So I'll be looking at the illustrations because there's fun little things hidden in there. Alex felt hopeful about number 10 until he lectured her on Russian classics. If you're not reading the best, he told her, why read it all? Too bad he couldn't read her face. Hashtag academia, nah. Numbers 11, 12, and 16 were awkward and so hurt when she didn't trust them enough to go to their place for their first date. Those nights, she traded herself and her gut instinct to a double-decker strawberry cone. Hashtag ice cream for personal safety. Hashtag ready to taste romance. Alex thought she had a coffee date with number 13. Instead, she was served a green tea lecture and a bite-by-bite calorie count of her blueberry yogurt muffin. Hashtag ready for a date diet. Date number 15 had 0 aspirations for travel or fun in general. I prefer to stay in my own neighborhood. Everything I need to see is on YouTube. As he talked, Alex imagined a far-off land, one full of exciting possibilities and people with actual personalities. Hashtag dreaming of Australia. Numbers 14, 17, and 19 were no fun and made her grateful for caffeine. Of course I want to hear about the time you got your wisdom teeth removed. Your closet is made up entirely of plaid shirts and chinos. Fascinating. I never thought much about dirt varieties. Alex went back for extra shots just to stay awake. Hashtag a latte small talk. Alex felt like she was babysitting number 18. He burped the alphabet and literally skated out on the check. She wanted to send a bill to his parents. No more daycare. Hashtag drunk dates barely counted. Alex never met number 20. He was too intoxicated to find the restaurant. The next day, Mr. 21 lost track of Long Island's and passed out at the table. It was strange to attend a first date's birthday, but Alex figured it'd be fun to meet number 22's friends. The surprise party was on them as their truly bad date gifted them the opportunity to invest in a startup. New rule, hashtag no more party favors. Hashtag for the books or not, 23 and 24 had all the advice. You haven't invested in Bitcoin? You're missing out on the future. I can't believe you like books. Print is dead. I could fit all the Library of Congress on my phone. Alex decided to leave them both on red. And then the illustration says, hey, you want to be a real author? Try self-publishing. You can crank online books out in a day. All of that was based on truth. Alex showed up to number 25's favorite spot, and unfortunately all signs pointed to another awful, awkward, no fun, truly bad date. Numbers 26 through 29, Alex texted her friend, hashtag don't even ask, hashtag not worth it, moving to Australia. As hashtag 30 dates in 30 days were coming to an end, Alex was at the end of her rope. She was 30, single, and almost 30 days clear on what she did and did not want. With only one day to go, Alex was expecting the worst. Can't see that anymore. Okay. Hashtag no show number 30 was her best date yet. I'll take one of everything, she told the server.
Yay.
It was so good, in fact, that she was ready for hashtag 30 dates in 30 days again. Rock climbing, hikes, trips to the winery, dancing, traveling with herself and maybe a few fab friends. There would be no more awful, awkward, no fun, truly bad dates now that Alex learned how to hashtag self-validate, especially in Australia. Hashtag koala me fabulous.
Yay. Oh my God, I love it so much. So great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for reading the whole thing. I just I love this book so much, and I think it's so important to hear like the whole arc of it, because you know it's so funny and painful and relatable and cringy, and then like to come out the other end and feeling like sort of uplifted is just so unexpected and so great. Like I think you did such an amazing job of that. So yeah, thanks for writing it.
Thank you. Thanks for wanting me to read it. That was fun.
Well, so I have to say, I feel the first thing I said to you when you like showed me this book was I wish it had been around when I was dating because I feel like so much it just feels like, you know, gospel truth, you know, all the way through. I think we've all had those moments. But I'm curious about what brought you to this topic, and especially in picture book form.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, they say write what you know. You know, I think that I would just journal about bad dates and laugh and sometimes cry. And I thought the genre, I eventually landed on this genre because I thought, you know what, like, we don't need another self-help dating book, although I may write one of those one day. But wouldn't it be fun to have a really digestible, like enjoyable format that you could like buy for friends to encourage them through the dating process and read, and also not a very daunting thing. I mean, it takes like 5 minutes to read, but you can read it over and over again and get something different. And so I also am just enamored with the picture book process. You know, as Amy mentioned earlier, you know, I have other picture book manuscripts that we're trying to sell with my agent, and I studied children's literature at Hollins University. And so it was really fun to take this mashup of these two different concepts. I love the picture book. That's why I call it picture book. I don't even call it children's book most of the time, because I think picture books are for all ages. And then these funny date stories, but then also this like encouragement focus that I wanted to have. Like, I just decided to kind of put it all together. And of course that took a lot of time and renditions, but I'm really happy that I decided to be like, you know what, maybe no one is doing this and maybe it won't even sell, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so great on like in book form. I remember reading it. When I read it, of course, it was just words, because that's how you query a picture book unless you're a writer illustrator. And then when I saw, and I already was totally enchanted with it. And then when I saw the illustrations, I was like, oh my gosh, it just like, it just comes to life so much on the page. And I know we're all kind of really interested in how that process feels from the writer's perspective, and how you found your illustrator, and how closely you work together on your vision for the book.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to speak really quickly to the pin thing. Is this what you guys want? I feel like it's only me, and I want it to be Amy too. Feel free to unpin me or do whatever you need to do.
I think we'll just naturally, if you unpin her, we'll just naturally alternate, which is fine too. But I'm also fine being small. I like being small.
Do what you will with the pins. No, you're right. Like when we query the agent, and then when the editor buys it, there is no illustrator. In fact, it's not really seen for traditional publishing. You don't want to even have an illustrator in mind. They come up with ideas, and I think my agent and editor showed different illustrators, and I got to kind of rate them. And I loved Katarina because, number one, she has just incredible flexibility and range. And I also looked at her Instagram, and she had a really good like French Bulldog. And I was like, yeah, we're going to need that. Thank you. So I put her really high up on my list. And then as far as the process goes, with picture books, and we can take a deeper dive, let me know if you want to go deeper in this, you're not necessarily writing in. Alexandra sat on a pink couch with her dog. You're really wanting to make sure that you write with such sparsity that you give space for the illustrator to make it come alive. And so I, of course, had a very, very detailed vision of how I saw the dates going and how that goes, but I didn't give all of that over. But my editor kind of asked me, because we were on such a tight timeline, she's like, we need more of the vision. Like, we need to let Katarina know what we're thinking. And so I said, okay, you want to know? I'll let you know. And so I got to be incredibly detailed. And I don't know how much we want to give away, because I want y'all to read it and find out, but there are certain friendships and Easter eggs that come that are hidden throughout the book. And so there's a whole kind of other story happening. And I definitely orchestrated that. And I felt like that was really important, because friendships are
impressive. So you really planted like a whole other set of clues, and completely independently of the illustrator, you kind of gave it to her. That's amazing. Wow. And because it does make a huge difference. I've read it several times and like looked at the pictures, and yeah, it kind of gives it a whole new dimension, actually.
Yeah. And there were some where I'm like, I just really want the friends. I wanted to show that she's has existing strong friendships, but she's also cultivating friendships along this journey. And so sometimes she just fit it in where she wanted it to be. But then I also had like a whole list of where and how I thought the friends should and could and possibly show up. So it was a collaboration, but I got to have a lot of insight, and I got to offer a lot of humor for the illustrations too, which was fun.
So the French Bulldog, you said that belonged to the illustrator, right?
Well, no, Lottie.
Okay.
Was my idea, but I knew I wanted her in there. So when I saw that Katarina did a great French Bulldog on Instagram, I was like, she needs to be in the top, because we want Lottie done right. You can see.
But Lottie is unnamed in the book, right? But you knew, like, that's a really amazing example of how specific your vision was, that you had this, you're like, well, she has a dog named Lottie and blah, blah, blah. But it's not anywhere in the words. I'm kind of blown away by that. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. I
think it also speaks to how much of a world, like a full world, it feels like this book. It doesn't, even though it's putatively about dating, but it doesn't feel reductive, even though that's mostly what she's doing. It just feels like there's so much world around her, and that she is like a person in it. And yeah, I think it's just delightful.
I love that you say that too, because I think that that can also feel like when you're dating, and like I'm currently doing, it's like, it can feel like, okay, well, let's do this. And I want to like strategize. But it's like, in order to date right and to like actually open yourself up there, you have to have this whole world that's already working. This isn't the thing that's going to make your life work. It's your life is working really well, and so you want to complement it with something. So I'm glad that you picked up on that, because I wanted her to be a full empowered character, and it's not like she's not like trying to find this because it'll complete her whole world. It's part of her world.
Yes, totally. It's like, I feel like, okay, so it's not like Kathy, the cartoon Kathy. Like, I am not dissing Kathy at all, by the way. I love Kathy and adore her. However, I think when you see like, oh, a book about dating, there's that, feeling like, oh, is this about her desperation to like get a man or whatever? And it's so not. It's really like, but at the same time, it does some of that same function of like, it helps you, it kind of helps you to like know that other people are out there having these experiences. Cause I mean, we get into this later, but I mean, I think I've had some bad dates. Like, there were several of these dates where I was like, I swear I have been on that date, Becca. Like, were you following me by chance?
I love that. Yeah, the struggle is real.
It's so real.
It's so real. And even in my my dedication, I talk about how, dating's not a solitary sport and you need people. And so even if people don't have a lot of people supporting them, which I hope they do with dating, I hope they can read this book and be like, it's not just me, and I feel seen, and I can do this.
Totally. Well, so do you mind if I ask you how much of this book was drawn from personal experience?
I don't mind at all. A lot of it was.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was. So much so, it's funny when they announced it in the publisher's marketplace or whatever. It was categorized as nonfiction. Which isn't what it is, but like, it's a picture book for adults. Like, there's just no spot for it, like in the drop down menu. And so like, but there's also a lot that I couldn't even put in there because I think people would be like, that couldn't actually happen. Like the Library of Congress date that's in the book, there was way more to that story. He actually ended up running out on the date, and it was just, there's like a lot that's inspired by true stories. So or people or dates I've heard of from other people, and friends along the way.
So this is a book that's clearly very of the moment. She's on her phone. She's like using hashtags. I think it's very clever and very funny the way you've done that. But I'm just wondering, like, do you think, I mean, is this kind of a universal thing? Has dating always been like this? Like, do you think it's, more crazy and like this now? Or yeah. So yeah, just a second.
Yes and no. I think that dating, I think sometimes a screen can make people feel like they're not necessarily even real. And so I think sometimes it's easier to ghost people after only meeting them online, or only talking to them or meeting them for a little bit because you weren't introduced by a mutual friend that's going to come knock on your door and be like, what are you doing?
Speaking of screens making you feel less real, I'm having a minor technical problem, but just keep talking about this issue because it's really interesting. I'm going to fix it.
I got this. I can talk about this all day. All good.
Keep talking, I'm loving it. I'm listening.
Yeah, no, good. And then I also think I talked to someone recently who had looked at my book, and he's probably 30 or 40 years older than me. And he just said, yeah, in my day, we called that passive aggression, like with the ghosting and different things. And so it was interesting because I think a lot of the terms or the way we talk about it, maybe there's new terms, maybe we joke around with hashtags, but I think some of the stuff has just been going on for a long time, unfortunately. And I believe, sadly, that maybe there's a little bit less accountability because people don't seem as real if you met them on a screen. I don't know. I have a lot of theories. I don't know how much you want to talk about that. I could do a
Oh,
whole.
I'm fascinated by it. I mean, I haven't dated in a while, but there was like a time when I was dating last, I was on like OkCupid or, you know, one of those type sites. I'm not even sure that was around yet. It was, but it was online, but not quite like on your phone, you know, not Tinder or whatever. So yeah, I do feel like there is something about, I remember like scrolling through the profiles and seeing people in this kind of detached way. And I do feel like, you know, like loneliness has always been around and wanting to be with someone has always been around. And it's always been a bit of a challenge. But yeah, there is something about mediating it through the screen that kind of, but I think it's so interesting how Alexandra is also kind of using this to her advantage in a way. She came up with the challenge, right? No one told her to do it. She has a hashtag for it and she is like, get through 30 of these things. So I'm curious, like, what do you think about, like, have you ever set a challenge like that for yourself? And this might be a leading question a little bit, using perhaps technology or a website.
Yeah, I mean, I have. I don't know if I've done the 30 dates in 30 days, but there's been seasons of my life where I'm like, Rebekah, just one date a week. You can do this. You've got this. But then there's also times in my life on the other end where I've done like no date February, where I've decided like I need a break. And also, I know that people usually like to zero in on romantic love in February, but I honestly love to think about the love that's already surrounding me. So it's fun for me to take a breather and really like zoom in on those that are already there. And I'm not trying to find anything. I'm just trying to enjoy what I have. And so I have done challenge. I'm very goal oriented. And so I do make challenges for myself. And I do try to just reinvent the way I see dating for myself, because I don't think it has to be done the way that we're doing it now or the way it's always been done.
I am fascinated. I kind of want to hear more about that. Like, because, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I did that application to date me on my website. I just think it'd be so much fun. And I've had people make fun of it. And I'm like, yeah, it's funny. You make fun of it. Like, it's kind of a joke, but it's also kind of serious. Like,
okay. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, this is kind of an amazing thing about Becca. And I think it embodies so many things that I love about her. So she has actually put an application to date her on her website. If you go there now, you can see the application. It is thorough and it is deadly serious, except also funny, but deadly serious. Like, she will review your application and your qualifications to date her should you choose to submit. And I don't think there's a submission fee, which is great. I mean, you know, you could be charging for this like the literary journals do. There's no reader fee, but yeah, so I just love this because it's so it's so optimistic and so kind of surprising and delightful and funny and witty, but also like there's a real heart there. And it's like, yeah, I am totally, I'm kind of like, what a good idea. It's like having your own dating site, but you're the only person on it. They have to come to you. But yeah, so how has that gone for you? And what have you learned from doing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's gone pretty well. I got more applications when I first, like, I launched it a year ago. So I maybe need to do a relaunch. It's felt super empowering and fun. And it's not, like you said, it's serious, but I also think what's helpful for it, and what I've heard, hopefully it'll do this for other people, but I've heard people say, it actually helped me kind of think about the things I'm looking for. And I think the most important part of the whole thing is this asterisk that says, I'm not asking anything from you that I'm not willing and wanting to bring to the table. And so it's meant to be playful, but it's also kind of a chance of evaluation. And it helps me, honestly, like when I go on these bad dates, I look back and I'm like, this is what I'm looking for, and this is what I'm hopeful for. And I really believe it's out there. So it kind of refreshes me. Also, sometimes when I'm getting a little frustrated on the apps, like on Bumble, which I love Bumble, sometimes I'm like, I just send the link out.
I love it.
If someone takes the time to do it, I think that's I want someone super brave and someone that is willing to be vulnerable. So if someone's willing to do that, then I'm like, okay, yeah, let's talk. So there hasn't been anyone that has applied that I haven't had a conversation with, because if you're brave enough to do that, then I want to talk to you.
That's so awesome. I love that. I think it's true. I didn't think about it that way, but it's like, even just the willingness to go through this is kind of in itself, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bravery and vulnerability required in getting to know someone. And one thing that I remember a lot from my dating time is that was the hardest thing to get. People would give you anything, like time, buy you dinner, great ideas, flowers even, but it's like bravery and vulnerability was absolutely like the most thin on the ground thing. And you could have like several good dates, but you'd hit a wall at some point because people were just too scared to be vulnerable. And you can't have a relationship with someone who's not vulnerable. And so I don't know. I think there's something kind of ingenious about it. And I would never have had that thought. I would never have thought of that if you hadn't said it. It's so true.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope they see that bravery and vulnerability from me too. Like, I'm clearly putting myself out there.
It is hugely brave. I mean, that's what I think is so great about it, because you're like just putting yourself out there in the most out there way possible. But it's kind of a baller move, it's like, I got the goods. Like, I'm not hiding it. Like, I love it. I think it's so great. I kind of wish everyone would have one, like every person who's dating needs their own personal application. Forget websites where everybody flips through, each other like they're, chips in a game or something. Just like, you have to go into someone's world and try, I think it's lovely. So are you going to start this service? Another business idea. I'm like, how about you start an empire, like a whole new way of dating that's application based? No aspirations to do so.
Love it.
Yeah.
Consider it done.
I know you have a lot of free time, so just no, you're a very busy woman because you run the Center for the Book and apparently are working on some other projects, right? Are they also picture books? Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit, or just give us like a tiny teaser. There's some questions I'm kind of gathering from the chat, and I'll ask them in a second. But I'm just curious, when you said you had other things cooking, I wondered.
Yeah, well, you know how it is. I can't tell too much about it, but I will say I have a project for teens that I'm really excited about. And then I also have a project, another picture book for adults that's cooking, and then multiple picture books for children, and then a completely outside the box idea that has to do with heartbreak.
Outside the box from you? No. You're living outside the box, girl. I love it.
Zoom box.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just look at your background. You apparently live in a cartoon world with a cartoon dog. Love it. I love it. Yeah. So someone asked what date. Natalie asked a question in the chat that I was going to ask it too. So I'm just going to ask it. Which date was your favorite to write, or do you have a favorite? And was it also one inspired by real life?
Yes. So I saw that from Natalie, and I'm like, which one? And I think I answered a different one every time this question is asked. But my favorite one to write was the last one, which was the where she gets stood up. Because I love thinking about the possibilities of that. And actually, I remember to kind of weave back. The drunk date that couldn't find the restaurant, that was inspired by a true story. And I have this Mexican food restaurant that I love in Austin, and they all know me there, and they know that I'm usually there for dates because it's like a safe place. And so the manager, I had already ordered my queso, and so he sat down and ate with me.
Oh,
Even better friends. And I think that wove into, you know, what you'll find in the illustrations. But I love thinking of like, okay, her best date was the one that didn't show up because she wants to show up even more in her life, and what would that look like? So my favorite one was all of her adventures after that with herself. That was a lot of fun to write.
I love that too. It's like the best ending. I found myself because of the structure of the book, as I continued getting closer and closer to the end, I found myself worrying, like, how is she going to end this? Surely you can't just have her like find love on date number 30, you know, like there's something that would be tempting, but like not honest about that. And I just love. Oh yeah, someone's asking if there'll be David is asking if there'll be a sequel, and that is an excellent question. I'm also wanting to know that.
I'm gathering ideas every time I have a bad date since my mom's like, you're getting ready for the sequel. I remember right after I sold it, there's actually a bad date story about when I sold it, if we have time for that. But right after I sold it, I remember I went on a date, and the guy's like, real quick, ask me about my job. And I'm like, okay, like, what about your job? And he's like, oh, I do this. And he gave me like one line. And he's like, okay, now work can pay for this.
Now what?
Work can pay for this. I had to ask him about his job so he could get work to pay for the date. So I'm constantly mining new material. So maybe there will be a sequel. Maybe a pandemic version, I thought would be fun. But
I
people are kind of
ask you about that.
Pandemic dating, that could have been more.
I was really curious about that, because I also thought when this book came out, I was like, it came out in a pandemic year. We've talked a little bit about how like the bummers, but also upsides of that. But yeah, I'm real curious about how dating worked or didn't work during the pandemic.
It was a fascinating thing. And I think one of the things that was so interesting about dating during the pandemic, which was a good thing, is we talk about the vulnerability and honesty, is you had to talk before you even met, like, hey, I'm just doing outdoors. FYI, I'm good with hugs. I'm not good with hugs. Like, you just had to like lay it all out before, which in some days was like super awkward, but also really refreshing to just go into a situation where you could feel completely safe as you could in the pandemic, you know, with the guidelines you put forward. So there wasn't anyone, and if they tried to push your boundaries that you were already set forward, it was a really good tell, like, this is not going to work because we already set these boundaries. Also, it was awful. I mean, I'm gonna say that one whole thing because it was like a good way to be positive about it, but dating during the pandemic was it was just crazy. It was crazy.
Like everything else during the pandemic.
Yeah,
horrible,
exactly.
Everything else. Yeah, I can't imagine dating got like way better. But I do think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting what you're saying, because there is something about negotiating those boundaries and consent. I mean, it's like it's something that is sort of the subtext of a lot of dating, but we don't really talk about it a whole lot. But even when you're going to a bar and meeting someone for the first time, or restaurants or something, it's very quickly the subtext can affect the evening in a positive or a negative way. And we don't just come ready to be like, well, this is how I feel about tonight. I'm okay with you doing X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Not really looking to do, A, B, or C. And it's just like, it does actually, yeah, there's something kind of even with friendships in the pandemic and with like getting to know other parents of kids that we were trying to arrange bubbles dates with, you had to vet everyone. I mean, everyone was like, had their cards right out on the table and was like, so here's my job and here's what I do. And, you know, this is how seriously I take it. And just an interesting time to be meeting new people. And in some ways, I think the people I have met that I newly met during the pandemic, I feel kind of closer to in a way, because we had to be vulnerable like that and be upfront.
And I want that to continue. I loved, actually, my friend Julie, who's on here. I see you, Julie. We were talking about that recently, about how, you know, I'm gonna really miss this. Not that I ever want everyone to be like struggling all the time, but I'm gonna really miss this known shared struggle. Like we all know something's going on with everyone else, and we just know that. And also when Julie and I got to see each other last weekend, you know, she texted me, she's like, we're all vaccinated, so we're good with no masks in the car, but we're happy with your preference. And I'm like, yeah, like we just have to talk things through, and there's no shame to continue to talk things through. Of course, you don't want to have like a heaviness around it, but it's okay to say like, hey, this is what I'm good with. This is what I'm not good with. Hey friends, I'm super zoomed out, but if you want to do a phone call where we just walk and talk, that'd be great. Or honestly, like with the dates or any friendships, it's like, it'd be fine to just do a 20-minute phone chat and not have to get together and spend $80 at a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there are some things that have come out of this that are actually really good, which I know this isn't related to the book at all, but I'm glad.
No, it is. I mean, I love your whole attitude. I feel like you're very wise. Like, I'm kind of like taking notes this whole time. And I do hope you write a self-help book for dating, like a dating advice book at some point, because I think you have so much insight and wisdom to share. And I love hearing it. Yeah, I gotta say, okay, so at some point I was saying we were gonna share like our worst date stories. And I just have to say, because we've been talking about it, and I encourage anyone in the comments or in the chat, anybody who wants to like just talk about their worst date, or just, you know, give us the like hashtag version of your worst date. I would love to hear it. But I actually went through something kind of like Alexandra in grad school, where I wasn't dating anyone, and I had gotten on these websites at the time, not apps, and I decided I was gonna do, I think, just 5 dates, but it was like in a month or something, and I was gonna blog about them. And so I had like date number 1, and they each had these little names, and one of them was like this futures trader, but he was like 24 or something. I was much older. He was much younger than me. He was just this like kind of like bright-eyed futures trader, and so I called him Futures, you know. And well, yeah, it's somebody who just like sits at a computer and makes money all day, I think. And you know, nothing in common. And it was just, every single date was like that. It was like there was just something like, you know, it just kept not working. But my worst date during that time was actually a setup, and so it was not even online. But the guy, we went to dinner together, and he found out I was from Texas, and this was in Chicago. And he asked me if like there were cacti or tumbleweeds or something. And I was like, well, actually I grew up in Houston, you know, so no. And he was like, but it was still like that though, right? And I was like, no, no, it's first of all, it's like a subtropical climate there. It's a really big state. So there's like desert, but there's also tropical. I was like, also, it's the 4th largest city in the United States. So no, it wasn't like tumbleweeds across the road. And he was like, but it still was though, a little bit like that. And he just kept hammering on it. It was like, he just dug in and was like, I'm not going to admit that I don't know something about the place where you grew up. And it was just like, it was the worst. It was bad. So that's my bad. That's my, I think maybe that's my worst date, where I didn't actually fear for my personal safety. Because we've also all had a date where that was the hashtag I was waiting for, like hashtag, like, you know, am I going to end this date like cut into pieces in your trunk, you know?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, with your date, like, but it's almost like he kept saying like, but you're still wrong and I'm still right.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I had that. I definitely have had that. I have definitely had that with the library, the date where the guy's like, people don't really, I think he said, people don't read books anymore.
And you were like, I beg to differ.
Yeah, he also did. Oh well, I don't know how bad to get. That day was way worse than I even explain in the book, and so I'm like, oh, how much do I want to say? But I did. I did. I did.
David, he's like, tell, spill.
So, okay, fine. I'll spill
As much as you feel comfortable, do not say anything that you don't feel comfortable saying.
It's fine. It just when he told me that. I don't know if I've extrapolated on this before in a talk. He told me that his ex regularly breaks into his house and lays out clothes for him, which is really awful. I like felt really bad for him. But he did proceed to tell me that she reads all of his text messages and follows him places, which is awful. I hate that happens, but also terrifying and fascinating at the same time. Yeah. But I was thinking, like, I am so glad that I didn't give you any information on like where I live. Like that. So that was one of those things where I'm like, that probably doesn't belong in the book, but that stuff happens where you're like, yeah. And so with like the joke about the guys that want to come over to your apartment for the first date or your house, like that happens. Yeah. And it's like, no, that's not happening. And also like, what? Like that's
yeah. Yeah, this is weird. Did this feeling ever, first of all, that's crazy. That's an insane story. I'm sorry that happened to you and to him. Yeah. And I guess also to his ex, because it sounds like a whole disastrous situation there, mental health wise. But also, yeah, do you ever get the feeling that some people approach this kind of dating as this kind of just like a crapshoot, like they're just spinning, you're just like another spin of the wheel, you know? And I think, I don't know, but it's hard to weigh because I know where that comes from. Like if you are the person who's been like blogging about your dates and giving them funny names, then like, aren't you also kind of part of the problem? And by you, I mean me.
No, I'm glad you said that because just to think about how I wrote this book, to think about, I also wanted people to see that maybe Alexandra wasn't always doing the best on the dates, right? Like I'm not going to act like that she's this perfect main character that was dating right. Like I think she tried to reserve judgment, but there's parts in there where I think that she could have been kind of coached. And so, you know, with writing, one of the things I love about your writing, and again, plug for Amy, is you write these really great characters, but they're not always, because they're not always 100% likable, nor should they be. And with Alexandra, I hope people read it and think, oh, I could be her friend and hang out with her. And I learned a lot about maybe dating this book, but there's some things that she's done that maybe I won't want to do at a date. Maybe I'm not making up hashtags about the person across from me while I'm dating. Maybe later when I'm trying to unpack it, you know?
Well, that's the thing. I think like this is a book that's all about unpacking those big feelings and like just finding a way to express them that makes you laugh. And like you almost have to share it with friends, you know? I mean, what is hashtagging and social media about but wanting to be seen and validated and you know, have your experience recognized by other people and liked, you know? So yeah, I think this book is great and I love seeing it in book form, you know, in like a form that you can give someone for their birthday or, you know, just for Galentine's Day or something. I had another question for you and it was just about the title and about like the concept of a picture book parody in the first place. So did you always have this title? And just tell us in case people don't know, but tell us what it's riffing on. And yeah.
Yeah. So if y'all remember the Alexander and the no good, terrible, horrible, bad day. And so there's nods to, that's where the nods to Australia come from.
Oh God, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that's where the Australia thread is. That's a little like love note to the original. I will say it's really hard to have a really long title, but there was only one title for this and we had to go with it, but we wanted it. I mean, I don't regret that it's really long, but I have a hashtag Alex Awful Dates for like the shortened version that I use sometime. And I see, I don't want to tread on you, but Amy, I saw that our Alexandra from Writing Workshops Dallas is asking the question about the hashtags becoming an expressive form of writing, and do I see it in a poetic way? I do. I think I love puns, and I think hashtags can be like just rich for pun possibilities. But I also, to kind of harken back to the picture book format, to write something that's so brief, but also packs a punch was really important to me about writing this book. Every single line, every single word was thought about over and over and over. And that's why I think hashtags can be like, you just kind of have to like funnel it down to make a real zinger. And I really enjoy that challenge. And I do think it's like poetry. And speaking of poetry, David, thank you for sharing your haiku. I did get a glimpse of that in the chat.
Yeah, that was very good. Should we read it out loud, David? Okay, where is it? It says, you were the last one in a long line of mistakes. Now get the fuck out. I feel we've all been there. I was just going to ask about your, what picture books are most important to you? You studied children's literature and picture books specifically. And what are the ones that have just been burned in your brain or are most important to you?
I love this question. I mean, a lot of the picture books of my time, I would think even now are considered, too long now. But I will say the ones that have been most burned in my brain and maybe most influential for me, I answer this question differently every time too, because there's just so much to answer. But the late Amy Kraus Rosenthal, she has written just these incredible, sometimes really like sentimental, sometimes humorous picture books, but she also writes all across different genres too. So she's written for adults and she's written for kids, but she's not she's known for playing with words, wordplay, and humor. And so if you want to see kind of my ultimate inspiration, check out the Amy Kraus Rosenthal books. She just has such beauty that she writes with. She has a book called Dear Girl. You may know her from the her article that went viral when she was dying of cancer, that was like, you're going to want to date my husband. And so she just wrote from her heart and soul, and she just did not hold back, and she didn't let fear control what genre she tried to write. So she's been very influential for me.
That's beautiful. I will check her out. I do remember that article. And I love what you just said about, not letting fear control what you want to write, because that has always been from the very beginning of my writing career, I went into it thinking, I just want to write whatever the hell I want. That's my mantra that I repeat. And, the people that I admire the most are clearly doing that. And I think you're clearly doing that. And I love and adore that. And I hope you just keep getting a chance to do it over and over again, because I want to see you write whatever the hell you want. I think it's going to be great for all of us if you do.
Thank you. And I would be curious if anyone else wanted to chime in on this, because I think that the books that are like the most fascinating are the ones that I think people started out writing, that they're like, I don't think anyone's ever going to read this, but I need to write it for me. You know, in this book, it's very, very, very beginning form, I was writing it for me. I wasn't even writing it for anyone else. And I know that it's so easy to be like, well, what are the trends and what are the fads and what's selling? And we have to be aware of those things, but like in its genesis, I'm hoping that people know that it's okay and wonderful just to write what you need to write, what you need to read. Like, for example, my latest Brave Tutu post is called Fly, and it's about a fly that gets trapped in a car. And that was the piece I needed to read. And I've read that on my own piece 100 times now, and I keep reading it because I needed to read it. So
I love that. Yeah, I think that's why the thing that drives you to write first, and this is one reason I was asking you too about children's literature, because I think most of us who write, we had an experience as children we had relationships with books, you know. That's the first time you ever like thought of writing. You were probably a child, or, you know, just out of childhood. And
great.
Sometimes during this pandemic, a thing that I have thought about a lot is reconnecting to that thing that initially made me want to write, because I think once you're, you know, publishing, it's so easy for all these other things to come in and all these other motivations to come in. And but the truth is, writing is really hard, as everyone in this room knows. It's really, really hard. And if you're not loving it, you know, like you're not going to be able to sustain it, you know. And why do it, you know, if you're not actually loving every minute of it? So, or at least connected to the thing that makes you want to push through the hard parts, I guess is a better way to say that.
Yes. Well said.
Can you tell me a little bit about your process? I'm kind of scanning also for some last questions, because I think we're a little bit past 8. So I'm going to ask people to, while you're answering this question about your process, if you have other questions for Rebekah, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure that she gets to them. But yeah, and also BadDates, feel free to tell us about them. But Rebekah, so can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to write a children's book? Because I've never done it. I'm in awe. I read them all the time to my son, and I really am in awe. And I don't even know what makes a good picture book work. So what is that like for you?
Oh man, I would love to teach a workshop on this. There's just so much to it.
Are you going to?
I mean, I would anytime.
Okay, I would take that class.
I have classes on it, and I would. But let me try to boil down the basics just so everyone knows. Is the average picture book is 32 pages. And that doesn't mean that there's illustrations on 32 pages. That means like you're taking into account the title page, et cetera, et cetera. But you think about how picture books, mostly you have to make sure that you have at least 15 illustratable moments. This is just the easiest way to think about it. So you can't write a book where all of it takes place at a park on one slide, because every single page or scene, it needs to take you somewhere a little bit new, or at least a little bit different perspective. I wouldn't worry about that at all. So I said that and then back up. I think just like anything else, if you want to write a picture book, write it all out. Write it all out. Do not worry about word count. Do not worry about page turns. Do not worry about illustratable moments. Just write the story you want to write. And then you need to get in there and probably cut 75% of it out, right? You might want to file it away. That percentage is probably personal for everyone. You might want to file it away, like, oh, this is what I was thinking of. Like for Alexandra, it was good for me to have my original notes on like how I envisioned her dates, because that came back to help me. But you're really writing in such a way that will let the illustrator take your words to help them come alive, like I said before. And then what really, really, really helps me, and I would recommend this for anyone, is to go online and find like the dummy where like they have like the different pagination, like this is how many pages you have, and make that like a bigger version of that, however you want. There's lots written on that line about this, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but actually take your words and either cut them or paste them. I like to like cut them out and put them in these different pages, like these different, page, 3, 4, 5, 6, and see how your words flow together, and see how you can actually create like strength and anticipation and even tension in each of the page turns, because just like the end of a chapter, that's what the page turns are, is you want people to keep going and wanting to keep going, and you're going to also cut more words that way, because you're going to see, oh, I don't even need this word. Okay, that was an explosion of words, but was that helpful?
I mean, I'm like, sign me up for your class. I'm taking it. This is so cool. I mean, it's like poetry. When you describe it that way, it really is like poetry, just to condense a story. As somebody who writes mostly novels, I'm always thinking about arc and how it works over this long thing, but I'm just always kind of curious when I read picture books. As I said, I do it all day, so or all night anyway at bedtime, and I'm always looking for the arc, like what is the structure that makes a story well suited to a picture book. And I'm still trying to crack it, but I'm curious about what kinds of stories like lend themselves. What made you want to do this in picture book form, instead of something else, for example? And like, do you ever have a story where you're like, oh, this wouldn't make a good picture book, but this other one would?
Yeah. I like, for the example, for the project that I'm doing for teens, I think it'd be fun to play around with making it into a picture book. But for them, I want, without giving too much away, I want something that they can really sink their teeth in and interact with in a unique way. And so I would lean away from the picture book for that. For this in particular, I also knew that she wasn't going to be sitting in the same restaurant with the same person every single date. And so I knew that there'd be extreme fodder for the illustrations and like really fun visuals. And I think with a picture book, it's pictures, right? So if you can see this exciting world that could blow up on the page and make people capture people's fascination in a way that maybe words could, but you could have like the colors come alive, then I think that's a good start for a picture book. If you can see these scenes that are going to draw people in, that's a good start for a picture book.
I love this. This is my favorite kind of conversation, because you're making me like want to go out and try something new. I'm like, ooh, maybe I want to write a picture. Yeah. Again, I urge you to teach a class, because I would take it from you in a heartbeat. And maybe I'll just take you out for coffee. We'll have a date sometime, and it will not be awful.
Amazing. It'll be amazing. And I have people contact me through my website too. And I should actually put some consult stuff on there, because I love to work with people on their ideas. I think it's fun. But yeah, Amy, we are long overdue for.
I know.
I would love to see you.
Well, this has been completely amazing. And yeah, I just think your whole attitude is so joyous and uplifting, and it really kind of puts a smile on my face every time I get to talk to you. And now I have this book that I can turn to every time I'm a little blue. So I hope I get more of those from you, and I can't wait. I'm excited to see what comes down the pipeline next, and congratulations on this one. It's just lovely. So let's all put our hands together. You can do a clap emoji in the corner of your thing. There you go. Or put one in the chat. Do screams and cheers for Rebekah Manley, amazing debut author and wise woman. Yay.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to the writing workshop and Gemini Inc. David and Alexandra, and I haven't met Blake, but this seems amazing. It's like, what a great night. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh no, it's our pleasure, Amy. Yeah, this is a very creative way to think about books because you run Texas Center for the Book, correct, Rebekah? So did being around so many different books, I'm like squeezing in a question here, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, I love questions.
Being around so many books and thinking about books and all the different shapes books can take help you come to this idea of like, I'm going to do a picture book for adults. I'm just curious if, because that's a great, very important job you're doing, helping people use libraries. My husband's an academic librarian. He loves that you're doing this. And then just making sure people find the books they need in life. But I would love to, did it have any influence, the day job with,
Yes.
Okay.
Did. And I never want to ever do a talk where I don't do a plug for the Texas Center for the Book. For the state of Texas, our state library and archives commission. You can find it with a quick Google. Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten to just be around amazing, talented authors and think about also listening to librarians. One of my greatest delights and joys is to be in the librarian world and listen to their needs and what they're looking for and what kind of makes them come alive and hear them just love to talk about books. And also I even think about our literacy award. We have a $2,000 literacy award that just opened and we give it away to a nonprofit every year. And thinking about how we get some amazing applicants that are sometimes for adult-based literacy, sometimes for children, and then sometimes for a hybrid. And for me, you can't write for everyone or you'll write for no one. But I do think that there's a lot of excitement to think about like how you're doing it, how you're executing it. And I think my job gives me a really fun perspective and to like the needs of readers. So I am very fortunate in that way.
No, that's great. It seems like storytelling has changed so much. I mean, my God, the social media era, the tweet, right? What was that? 140 characters originally? And you were talking about hashtags, Amy. So yeah, I just think that's interesting. Like you're saying, even this book is very different from the picture books you might have read as a child. So how storytelling is constantly morphing. And I think your book's a great example of that. So I'm gonna give everyone back their evening, but this is so amazing. Thank you, Amy, for your wonderful questions. Thank you, Rebekah, for all your wonderful energy. Please look at the chat. Yeah, there's Rebekah just put in a link to the Texas Center for the Book. Check out Amy's work, check out Rebekah's work, check out this.